This is a video about arbitrage with Fkb3. Arbitraging with Fkb3. Arbitraging with Fkb3. Arbitrage is taking two opposite positions in two different markets, one in cash, another one in futures, in order to take advantage of price distortion or mispricing between cash and futures market. Before we start with calculation of fair value of Fkb3, you need to understand what is R1, R2, R3, T1, T2, and T3. So you must know how to identify what is the R1, what is the R2, and R3. So what is R1? R1 is the spot interest rate with short maturity period. T1 is a maturity period of R1. R2 is the spot interest rate with long maturity period. T2 is the maturity period of R2, R3 is the interest rate of Fkb3, and T3 is T2 minus T1 and should always 90 days. We look at example. Let's say you have current market data are as follows: 30 days CLIBOR rate, 120 days CLIBOR rate, and March CLIBOR futures. So if you look at this example, you have two spot rate and one futures rate. So futures, March CLIBOR futures, 3.4% is automatic become the interest rate of Fkb3. So that is a R3. Okay. So now you need to compare 30 days CLIBOR rate and 120 days of CLIBOR rate. So these two interest rate is the spot rate. So spot interest rate with short maturity period, so in this case is 30 days, is the R1. So R1 is 2.55%. T1, the maturity period of R1 is 30 days. And the 120 days CLIBOR rate, which is 3.5%, is the R2 because it is a spot interest rate with long maturity period. And T2, maturity period of R2 is 120 days. Okay, so R3, 3.4%, which is the interest rate of Fkb3. So T3, T2 minus T1, 120 days minus 30 days, so you get 90 days. So now we look at the overpriced strategy where futures price is higher than fair value. So this is the example for futures price higher than fair value or overpriced strategy. Today, February 2008, Kenneth believed due to the market volatility, there may be an opportunity for arbitrage between CLIBOR futures market and the physical CLIBOR market. The amount fund available for this activity is RM 100 million. Current market data are as follows: 30 days CLIBOR rate is 2.55%. 120 days CLIBOR rate at 3.5%, March CLIBOR futures at 3.4%. In March 2008, the March CLIBOR futures converge with the physical rate at 3.45%. Explain how Kenneth is able to determine whether the arbitrage exists, and outline the transaction that he must undertake to complete the arbitrage profit and loss. First, you must identify what is the R1, R2, R3, T1, T2, and T3. So you have 30 days CLIBOR rate 2.55%, 120 days CLIBOR rate 3.5%, March CLIBOR futures 3.4%. So futures is automatic become R3. So R3 is 3.4%. Now we have two spot rate to compare here, 30 days and 120 days. So 30 days is the short maturity period, 120 days is the long maturity period. So R1 is 2.55%, R2 is 3.5%. And maturity period for R1 is 30 days, maturity period for R2 is 120 days, and the maturity period for T3 is 120 days minus 30 days, so you get 90 days. Step number 1, you need to calculate fair value. So fair value of interest rate is equal to 1 plus R2 times T2 divided by 360 divided by 1 plus R1 times T1 divided by 360 minus 1 times 360 divided by T3. So you plug in the figures R1, R2, T1, T2, and T3 in the formula, and you get 3.81%. So that is fair value of interest rate. You need to convert it into fair value of price. So 100 minus 3.81, so you get fair value of price at 96.19. Step number 2, you need to choose your strategy. So fair value calculated from the previous step is 96.19. Current market price of Clibo futures at 96.6. Therefore, futures price higher than fair value. So this is overpriced condition. So we use overpriced strategy. You need to sell futures today, borrow at R1 for T1 days, borrow at R3 for T3 days, and lend at R2 for T2 days. So if you plug in all the figures into the strategy, so you need to sell March Clibo futures today at 96.6, borrow R1, which is the 2.5% for 30 days, borrow R3 at 3.4% for T3 days, 90 days, and lend at R2, which is the 3.5% for T2, which is the 120 days. So you want to sell futures contract, you need to calculate number of futures contract. You plan to use 100 million divided by size of contract for FKB3, which is 1 million per contract. So that means you need to use 100 lots of contract. So next, you need to convert your arbitrage strategy into arbitrage table. So you have 4 strategy here. Strategy number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So strategy number 1, you put in box futures today. Strategy number 2 and number 4, you put in box spot today. Strategy number 3, you put in box spot later. So if you look at the futures table, futures column, you open position, sell 100 March Clibo futures today. Then you need to complete that transaction. You need to close out your position. You need to buy 100 March Clibo futures at later price, which is at 96.55. So step number 4, you need to calculate profit from futures market. So profit from futures market is selling price minus buying price times number of contract times 100 times value of 1 basis point. So selling price and buying price of your futures contract refers to your arbitrage table. 96.6 minus 96.55 times 100 times 100 times 25. So you get 12,500 ringgit profit cash inflow. Then you need to calculate interest expenses from borrowing activities. So you have two times borrowing activities. You borrow 100 million at 2.55% for 30 days. The second one, you borrow 100 million at 3.4% for 90 days. So you have 2 interest expenses. The first one, 212,500. The second one is 8,500 ringgit. Next, you calculate interest revenue from lending activities. So you have 1 lending activities. You lend 100 million at 3.5% for 120 days. So you get interest revenue worth 1.66666667 million. Step number 6, you calculate net profit from the arbitrage strategy. So futures profit 12,500, positive cash inflow. Interest expenses cash outflow, so negative. So minus 12,500 ringgit and 8,500 ringgit. This is your interest expenses plus interest revenue cash inflow 1.67 million. So your net profit is 116,666 ringgit and 67 cents. Now we move to underpriced strategy where futures price is less than fair value. So before we calculate the fair value, you need to identify R1, R2, R3, T1, T2, and T3. So this is given in the question. So 30 days CLIBOR rate, 120 days CLIBOR rate, and March CLIBOR futures. So March CLIBOR futures is the futures the futures interest rate. So it is automatic become the R3. So R3 is 4%. Now we have two interest rate here, 120 days and 30 days. So 30 days CLIBOR rate is a spot interest rate with short maturity period. So 2.55% is R1. 120 days CLIBOR rate 3.5% is the spot maturity rate with long maturity period. So 3.5% is the R2. T1 is 30 days, T2 120 days, T3 T2 minus T1. So 120 days minus 30 days. So you get 90 days. Step number 1, you need to calculate fair value. So you plug in all the figures given in the question into the fair value of interest rate formula. So you get 3.81%. Then you need to convert into price. You take 100 minus 3.81%. So you get the fair value of price at 96.16. Next, you need to prepare arbitrage table. So you have 4 strategy here. Strategy number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Strategy number 1, you put in box futures today. Strategy number 2 and number 4, you put in box spot today. Strategy number 3, you put in box spot later. Then you need to close out your position. You buy 100 March CLIBOR futures today at 96. Then you need to close out. You sell 100 March CLIBOR futures at 97.5. Step number 3, you calculate profit from transaction in futures market. So formula profit and loss is selling price minus buying price times number of contract times 100 times value of 1 basis point. 97.5 minus 96, selling price and buying price, refer to your hedging table, times 100 times 100 times 25. So you get 375,000. Step number 4, you need to calculate interest expenses from borrowing activities. So you have one borrowing activities, you borrow 100 million at 3.5% for 120 days. So you get 1.67 million. Step number 5, you calculate interest revenue from lending activities. So you have two lending activities, you lend 100 million at 2.55% for 30 days. And then the second one, you lend 100 million at 4% for 90 days. So you have two interest revenue. The first one, 12,500. The second one is 1 million. And step number 6, you calculate net profit. So futures profit, 375,000, positive cash inflow. Interest expenses, cash outflow, negative 1.166666667 million. Plus interest revenue cash inflow 12,501 million. So your net profit is 220,833 ringgit and 33 cents. So that's all for Arbitrage Fkb3. Thank you.